Hey guys, it's Chris, and today we're going to start doing the fuel pump on the 2003 Nissan Frontier XE 2.4 liter 5-speed 2-wheel drive. I've seen several videos on YouTube and other places that are covering the V6 or the 4-wheel drive or the Xterra or an older D21 that was a 4-wheel drive, and none on the truck that I own and probably many of you own. So I went on eBay and I ordered this Bosch replacement fuel pump. Here's the part number. It is B038K9 or BO, I'm sorry, 38-K9205. And although this is small, this is the complete kit. So we're going to go ahead and open it, and it should have the filter screens in it too. So what you get inside is the filter kit, and there are two of the screens. One is this one and one is a fine mesh. Also, you're going to get some wire crimpers, some small hose clamps, the C-clips, the rubber bumper, wiring for the pump, and the extra screen along with a rubber piece of fuel hose. Now, since we're reusing the housing, all we're going to be replacing is the pump, which would sit in here like this, and the fuel sock would go on the lower side like this. The pump would pump out of here. So that's the game plan. What we're going to do is show you how to remove the tank. There are two ways you can do the fuel pump. You can either lift the bed of your truck up, which takes two people, and since I'm a solo operation, I will be doing the drop the tank method, and I will show you how to get started on that. You will need to remove your passenger side rear tire and jack your vehicle up, but not at first. First, we're gonna just go take a look at what we have to do, and we'll see you in the garage in a second. Okay, so here we are. We're gonna go hands-free on the camera, off of the tripod here. And I don't know what it is about me repairing vehicles, but it's always freaking hot in this garage when my stuff decides to go. So I have my big light here for added vision, and what we're going to do is first we're going to open the fuel door, and you're going to notice there are three 8mm screws here. Well, they're bolts and they're screws. But what you're going to have to do is remove your gas cap, which we will get to in just a minute. This is just an overview. And then, as I balance this big light in front of me, you're going to take an 8mm socket and you're going to remove this one, and this one. What that's going to do is that's going to free the top of the fuel filler neck. And I'll show you why we need to remove our tire, because right here, you can see my tire's in the way. Oh, and underneath of the car here, or the truck here, let me shove this light in here. It's a little muddy. Maybe you can hose yours off before you get started. Okay, so after you remove those three, what you're going to do is you're going to have three Phillips head pain in the butt plastic screws, one here, one up the top here, and one here. Now if you reach around here, you'll be able to feel like the little grabby kind of pinch bolts. So when you put the Phillips screwdriver in here, which I'm going to attempt right now, and I guarantee you it's not going to work. Yeah, as you can tell, it's just turning and turning, and if I keep going, it'll strip the little plastic head out. There's no resistance, but it's just spinning inside of the plastic bolt. And you can see as I push, I can actually push on this. So I'm probably going to have to pop these out, and we're going to replace them. But you're going to need to get this plastic shielding off, because there is a 10mm like hose clamp at the base here. I don't know if we can even see it down here, right around. It's right underneath. It's literally right here. 10mm band clamp to remove the filler neck rubber part to the tank. There is also a low pressure. There's two lines coming up on this side. Okay, and that is the low pressure return and the vent for when you're pumping your gas, and so it can fill without clicking off. There are two hoses that we'll get to in a minute. You can see the bases of them right here with the plastic zip tie around them. And that's off my fuel pump. We will have several more hoses that we will remove once we get in there. They are the quick release clamps. Oh, we can see the 10 mil in there. You see it down at the very base of that tube? Behind this little hose, you'll see a 10 millimeter clamp in there, and right in there. So that's the 10 mil for removing the neck from the filler, and there's a little tiny vent tube on top that we can remove also. But we're going to remove the tire first so we have some room in here. Otherwise you're limited to a span of your hand for working, and we'll go over what we need to do next. So now we can see the tank. Some of you may have a skid plate if your vehicle opted for it. And you'll know it'll have another set of bolts. Here is the tank bolts here. So I'm looking kind of over the rear axle right here. And we're looking forward. So you'll see 1, 2, 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot them with some penetrating oil. And there's 3 on the front also. And we're going to get them, you know, nice and soaked so we can take a gander at the other things we have to take off. And starting with the 3/8 millimeters. Okay, so we're going to be removing, I had to put a long extension on so I could sit in front of the camera here. An 8 millimeter socket. And we're going to take these 3, if I can get my wrench to turn, filler neck. Let me adjust this camera. Filler neck bolts out. With those 3 out of the way, we're going to remove the gas cap here. And then, if I can get this stationed correctly, we should be able to grab this entire assembly and give it a tug. Okay? See how I'm grabbing it right here? I'm just grabbing it off this plastic thing. That way, we can move this, if it'll let me, into the wheel well. There we go. Okay. So it has a little plastic lip. I gotta remove the camera again. So I just went in here with a wedge and bloop. So now we can see the lines that I was talking about. And you can see they just run right in here. Now you can either remove them from these 2 clips and let them stay on the tank, which is what I might do. Here's your little measly fuel neck. You can see the vapor lines going right to the base of the filler for gurgle and stuff. There is a 10 millimeter screw here and a small rubber hose. I am not breaking it off the tank. I'm going to take it off of here. If I need to replace this hose, I will. So I'm not going to remove these. As you can see, they're like little plastic turds. I'm not even bothering taking them off. If you can squish it around this lip right here is where I had to pop it out with a screwdriver. And it just breaks the neck, not breaks, helps you pop the neck over that lip. You can't go up because there's metal from the fender well on the inner skirt. Same for forward. So you have to go towards you. That's why I recommended getting the tire out of here. So to double check myself, 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter. Now I'm going to go ahead and spray these down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this bolt right here. And I really like this PB catalyst. I had a can for like 20 something years and it was just about done. And I'm just going to give everything a little spray in here. Okay. It was just about done and somebody said, hey, I saw that stuff at AutoZone or Advanced Auto, and sure enough, another can, so hopefully another 20 years or so. So I'm going to take this 10 millimeter and loosen this up. Now it's a good possibility that I'm going to break this right off because it's the cheap ass band clamp kind. Oh, it did come free. But I twisted the living crap out of it. If you can see, here and here, these 2 are just depression clamps. They're so weak I can grab them with my fingers and slide them out of the way. But be careful because you can use pliers, and I'm going to have to for one of these. You can rip these hoses, so be careful with that. So we're going to remove this clamp, and that's the clamps you get in the kit. You get replacement clamps, at least in the kit I ordered. So if you're going to order that part, make sure you get the socks and the clamps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the hose and give it a twist. That way I can make sure it's not stuck on the pipe, right? And I'm trying to twist this so you can see it. And if I could get this big old hose off, it'd be great, but okay, so here comes one hose. That's one. And maybe these will be replaced also, because they're pretty old, and this has never been done to it. Holy moly, that one's on there. Alright, maybe I'll take a breather from that one for a second, and we'll keep going with the filler neck tube. And I'm sorry if this glare right here is crazy. I'm trying to give you enough light to see what I'm working on. I'm going to basically try and separate this hose, which has been on here since the factory, just by prying around it a little bit with that really crappy hose clamp that doesn't really do anything. And this will definitely be replaced with a modern one. I'm using it as my leverage, and it is coming free. I just don't have a lot of room in here. What a very bad design for a clamp. I mean, a total crap. Look at how junky this is. I'm just bending this thing out of the way. This is just shit. Alright. So look at this crappy clamp. Okay. So we're going to remove that turd. Look at that junk. I mean, I guess it held, but what a crappy design. I'm going to check for cracks. And this should come free pretty easily now. There we go. Alright, now we're going to get our other final hose out of here. And look at that. Can you see that? It's got a nice big crack in it. I don't think that's for me. I just think it's dry rotted because of all the years of fuel and vents and stuff. So we're going to be replacing that hose. And so we're going to slice straight down the crack just to free it up. Okay, with that we should just be able to pop this out. And here is your complete fuel neck without removing these press clamps. As you can see, they're like those old crappy press clamps, so if you're spinning this screw, you're gonna have a hell of a time. So I'm gonna wash this, clean this up so it's not so muddy on reassembly. There is an evap hose right here. Right here. See this thing? One here, and it will run to the big fitting on the tank below these two hoses right here. So we're going to pop that off. That is a stainless steel line that runs to the charcoal canister. Alright, so as you can see right here, the hose has been removed, and it was split anyway, so I just ran my knife up it and popped it free. The hose clamp is the piece you see sitting here. It just slid back. Word of warning, right in here there is a plastic clamp that holds the evap line to the charcoal canister. There's actually two of them, so you can break them like I did. Be careful. There are these down here. Okay? My light just went out. They are right here. They have a Phillips screw metal clamp. They come off the metal fuel lines. You can remove them there, or you can remove them from the top of the tank. So we're going to remove that plastic zip tie and get the two fuel lines off the rail here, down here. Alright, so we're removing these two screws. What I do is I reach around the frame here, and I can get the screwdriver right in here. And you see the tip of the screwdriver, and I'm undoing the two screws. The other one I did off camera, and you can remove them by pulling up on them. Oh, there, Dry Rot City. So you can see the in there one, and there's one in front of it that's in the same direction. So we're going to pop those off, and that's all the hoses we need to remove for the time being. There's this guy too, which is a finger clamp. You can just pop that off. It's a standard. So we're going to take that, and I'm going to try to do this with one hand while I hold the camera. I don't know if this is even going to focus, but I'm grabbing the clamp. Trying to slide it out of the way while I'm trying to focus the camera on the object. Okay, so that's off, and we can slide that hose up right there. Boop. So that one, pull these two hoses up, and then we're ready to drop the tank. Okay, so I removed the hose clamp. I just stuck a screwdriver in there and popped up. It came right off. Now we're doing the same to these two. Let me get those off. Okay, so we removed these two hoses. They're just hanging free off the nubs. You might get a little fuel spillage, and I mean a little, like nothing. So just be cautious when you do that. So that's all the hoses removed. We have the vent charcoal canister. We have the filler neck. We have the two filler neck vapor catcher thingies. We have the low and high, or the return and the high pressure fuel lines removed, and the only thing left are the electrical connections and the actual pump assembly itself. So I sprayed the bolts here in the back, and I forgot to spray the bolts in the front. So I'm going to spray them, and then we're going to use the impact gun and drop this tank. We're not going to remove all the bolts all the way. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure they loosen up without breaking off, because I'm cursed. And if they're all successful in being loose, we'll put a jack underneath of the tank to prevent it from falling, and then we will remove the 6 bolts that hold it in place and slowly lower the jack. Alright, so remember I was telling you about the shield thing? Right here, this is the like kick plate shield. It has two 17mm bolts, which I sprayed, so we're going to have to remove those before we can get to the, you can see the one up there. I think there's only 2, ouch, God. I think there's only 2 in the front. And the tank rests on a lip, so it's not like you're going to drop it. Now the back will come free and hang down, and then the front sits on that front lip. It like rests over top like this. So I don't have to worry about the front dropping. But let's get these backs cracked loose. It is a 17mm 6-point, which is what we're going to be going on, and we're going to be using the Harbor Freight Earthquake to pull them out. Okay, so the shield's out, 17mm bolts. You can see the penetrating oil did penetrate the threads on that one, but not on that one all the way, and it was a tough booger to get out. So make sure you spray them. Penetrating oil does work, but you got to soak the crap out of them. Alright, so looking straight up, you're going to see 2. One here, and they are rusty. And they look like the bolts are on the top of the tank. Yep, isn't that wonderful? So these are the nuts that you're not going to get off. We're going to have to do a 17mm wrench. We're going to spray these down, let them soak for a little bit. And then we're going to take a socket on the top of this frame rail here, reach over and hopefully crack them loose. Okay, I'm going to try and film this. Okay, so I'm laying on the ground. We have a bolt here. We have our socket over top. Oh my God. Okay. And it's breaking free. Now hopefully that penetrating oil will work its way into those threads here. I guess if you're really in a pickle, you can wire brush those. Now, I'm only using a 3/8 drive. If you have a 1/2-inch drive, this would work a lot better. And that's what I'm going to do. Crap, am I even recording? I don't know if I'm even recording. Okay, so in case you missed that, the tank is out. I had some critter wires here. I took a wire brush to this area. I noticed some chew marks all over my hoses, so all these hoses are going to be replaced. The one is a little crazy bend. It has some critter teeth marks down here. You have your filler neck and your 2 vent tubes for your filler neck. This is to the charcoal canister. This is another breather tube, and your return line and your pump out line to your tank, your fuel filter. Excuse me. There is a factory part number that I just found a sticker for here. Nissan 55. I can't read all the numbers on it, but what we're going to do is we're going to shoot these 6 Phillips screws, which are also 8mm. So I highly recommend that you do not use a Phillips screwdriver on these. Instead, spray them down with some penetrating oil and let it sit for a minute. And we're going to crack them loose with the 8mm on a standard socket live here. So just to see if they come free. And I know I didn't wait that long, but yeah, they're not in. I think it's 6 foot-pounds. Yeah, they come right loose. So carefully, we're going to remove all of these screws, bolts, whatever. So when I removed that last bolt, this popped up. The orientation is always going to be passenger side for your hoses. Your vents, now these wires I'm not worried about. So you're going to carefully lift this up, and on the inside you are going to have a small wire that you have to depress and remove because it has a float mechanism inside which has to be disconnected first, and then the float arm, I'm on my cable, and the sock and everything can come out as one. Now I'm going to let this drain for a second because it has some fuel on it. You can squeeze it and get it out, and we'll check the tank. Inside of here, here's the pump right here, which is what we're going to be replacing, and the hose. We're going to reuse these connectors because they're a lot better than the ones you get from actually not too bad from itself. Now this truck has the low fuel light, and that is part of some vent tubes in here, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And this is just your float for your gas gauge, which my gauge has always worked fine. So I'm just continuing to let the fuel drain out. Sorry about that, I bumped the power button. There's a plastic box in here, and you can see there's some gold level fuel stuff, right? But this box, I don't know if you can see it, sits on a plastic thing up in the front there. That box needs to stay still because your pump assembly sit inside of it. Now this is with the fuel light on, so I still have, gosh, I think a couple gallons of fuel in here. I don't need to drain it out because I don't need to clean anything. My box actually looks good. There's no rust inside the tank. It's up to you. One thing you do want to replace, which I'm going to replace, is right here. There is, if I can get it out, there is an O-ring that I just ripped, and it ripped again. So you're going to want to replace that because that's your seal on your tank. So we're going to remove that. I'm going to put the camera back on its tripod without bumping the power button, hopefully. You can get yourself an X-Acto knife, or I was going to just spray it down, but it seems to be coming off when I can have both hands without holding the camera. Just carefully remove it so I don't get any rust particles in the tank. So that's the old O-ring. Ploop. And now I am going to cover this tank up and get it out of the way. I'm not touching the ring, I'm not touching the rust, I'm just sliding this. I'm going to put a rag on top of it just so I don't smell fuel and nothing falls into it. So what we got going on is this. I got those wire issues I have to figure out. I need to get the pump out of here and the sock and all this good crap. So this is press fit. This stupid thing, fuel sock, you can just take a screwdriver and literally go like this, pop, and that's free. Now you can see the bottom of the pump assembly and the rubber head in there. We're not worried about that right now, but note what this sock looked like. Okay, there's two different types of socks that came in that bag for me. This fuel pump has another electrical connection. Woo, that's cold. Electrical connection right here, where it's just a push the button and this little electrical connection will slide out. If you want to and need to, you can undo the grippy part over here. What we're going to do is then remove this line with some pliers here, and I'm probably going to try to remove, I need bigger ones. Channel locks to the rescue. I'm going to try and rotate this without breaking it so I can get to it. Okay, one, and the other one is going to have to be needle nose because it is behind the pump head. So when you remove that, all these pieces are press fit, okay? Right here is a rubber like sock. It's to blow out fuel when it's too much pressure. Remove it, and there is another clamp, see that, on top of it. Remove this clamp if you can get to it. That's the problem. When I'm done, the idea of removing this clamp and that little rubber thing is this press piece will now be able to be removed. But in order to do so, I have to get this clamp off to free the plastic grip on the pressed in piece. There's a little flare on the bottom of here that I need to break free so I can get this assembly out. Okay, it is free. Here's my pump. So we're going to do a comparison of the old pump. Alright, so I got the box of the stuff. And here's the original fuel pump. We're just going to compare size. Okay, good. I was scared there for a second. So, pump wise, we're the same. We match orientation. Everything matches. Reinsert your pump. You're going to notice in the bottom of your housing you have this cutout. Please make sure that your pump orientation is that way. So I'm going to try it with this without the rubber bumper first. So we're just going to slide this in. And it has a line of where it's supposed to be pushed down to. I don't know. So there's ours with the rubber piece in, and our line will connect there. Where our sock goes on here and here. But you'll see that the sock retainer and the sock, yeah, they do fit. Bingo. I'm going to have to get another sock because the sock that I come with is this one, and it's not the right kind. It doesn't fit correctly. It's the wrong direction. It doesn't even look the same on without removing this pump. Alright, so I had to remove it to put this on. Oh, before you forget, don't forget your hose clamp. Well, hell with that. Let's put the pump on. Whoops. You know what? I'm putting the clamp on the hose because I'm stupid. Because I did the top of the hose first. So I'm just going to put this back on here and slide it up. I'm going to put my pump in all the way. I'm not going to lock the clamp down. I'm then going to make sure my rubber dude is in there and put it back on the bar and slide it up and rotate my pump to match the correct orientation and slide this all the way up. You have to get over the lip. You can't have this bottoming out. So the pressure spring and slide this up all the way you can to make sure that this lip is protruding underneath the plastic. And then we're going to take our hose clamp thingy and rotate it so I can actually put it on and then slide this down and lock it in place. Now you can use these screw types, but I don't think these are stainless, and these have been in here holding and working great for years. So this is tight and looks good. I'm going to put my wire back through. Now remember, I don't have my sock on. I'm going to plug my pump in, click, so that's how it's going to sit. And what I'm looking for here is to make sure that these are not touching the wires. So I don't like how this is sitting, so I'm going to rotate this clamp over to the side so there's no possibility of any wires rubbing against it, because that's not good. So that's the pump in minus the fuel sock. I have to put my clip on here, and I'm going to repair the wiring here is my next task. But I'm going to do that off camera because this video will be pretty long if I don't. And while I'm at it, I'm going to take a wire brush to the underside of this because it's pretty rusty around where the rubber ring was. Everything else looks pristine clean. Okay, so a little update. The wires here are really bad. This one totally broke off right here. I'm going to have to do some crazy soldering to repair it. I guess in this instance it would have been wiser to order another assembly, but I might still do that. I don't know. I did put a standard hose clamp on the coupler to hold the pump press assembly in, and I reinserted the little rubber dude and its thing. So, I mean, if the wires were fine, we'd be ready for reassembly. It just goes in the tank, bloop, with the hoses out the passenger side, and put the tank back in, fire it up. But unless I can get this wire fixed, or wires, there's two of them that broke off, and potentially a third one that is chewed and frayed, which are causing my code, which I still haven't told you what the code is yet. I'm still going to try and do this. I'm going to do my best to solder this wire in here, and whoops. My apologies. We're running out of daylight. Solder this wire in here. I put some heat shrink tubing on it, liquid electrical tape. Maybe cover this whole area with some kind of... Alright, so a little update on the wires here. I managed to solder that wire back together, and I put shrink tubing on it. I also used some liquid electrical tape to cover everything with liquid electrical tape. When it dries, I'm going to do a second coat. I had to repair a couple of the wires, and then I zip tied the little shielding down. So here's the factory part number. 56105, and some other stuff in there, and a serial number and whatever. But that's that. We're back together minus the fuel sock, which I will pick up tomorrow. Hello and welcome to day 2. Right now I just ran some degreasing, dishwashing, soap, and scrubbed the lines with this old rag here and got them clean. This is the evap tube, which has some bite marks in it and a split on the back side, so that'll need to be replaced. I did call Nissan, and this part number is KM690103OAO, but it is no longer reproduced, so that's a bummer. I'm gonna have to make regular hose and find one that's kind of the same. I'll go to AutoZone or Fisher or wherever. This hose is another one that is not reproduced. It is just a funky bend evap tank hose. These both run to the rear of the tank. This one surprisingly is okay. These hoses, these are the small vent tubes off of the filler neck. Remember I split them, and these are the two fuel lines that run from the fuel pump itself to the filler and the return. They have been chewed on and mauled up, and all sorts of nice little things on them from critters. Here's another slot where it's been chewed a little bit. You can see the clean line where the hose was. These are just standard fuel lines. They can be replaced. Even though they're in a weird bend, your straight fuel line will accommodate them. So don't worry about these or this one. Even though it's got this funky bend, think about it. You can just find a hose with a 90 and it's straight, and then don't worry about the funkiness. It's just to run underneath the fuel pump, but their new ones are flexible and not as hard, so you can manipulate it around where you need it. This one is going to be my only booger. I don't know the size of it. I'm going to take it with me to the auto parts store and see if I can line it up. One thing I did forget to get was the fuel sock. So luckily my local auto parts store said they can get me one by 11. It's currently 10:34. So I'm going to get ready and head down there. I wanted to show you one thing. So I wiped this hose with penetrating oil just to scrub it up and make sure it's clean, and I thought I had a crack here. There's a line right here. There's also a line right here. I think this is just an orientation mark, because upon closer inspection it's a bump. It's not a crack, and it does not go through. The hose is totally fine on the inside. I'm going to drape something over this. On the tank itself, I sprayed it down with like the preventative, whatever, penetrating blaster oil, and just scrub the dirt off of it. And I had to clean up the ring. If you recall, I had the ring was very rusty around here, so I was worried about debris getting in the tank. So all I did was turn on the shop vac as I scraped around with a screwdriver, this little regular screwdriver. So I literally went like this. I would scrape around with the vacuum running, and I was able to clean the channel up enough where the ring sits nice. I also left some oil in there for now, and that's that. I did check on the low fuel thing. Let me get my light. So this vehicle is equipped with a low fuel sensor right there. When that hits a certain amount, it trips the low fuel light, and as you can tell, I got a couple gallons of fuel. I don't think that's low. That's low fuel, but that's not dead in the water. So I bent that thing forward to submerge it a little more until my light comes on when it's really low. That way I only have about a gallon or so left. That's about 30 or so miles, 25 to 30 miles, depending on your driving habits. So hopefully that'll keep that light from coming on as soon as it hits down near E. It's usually about 1/8 of a tank it comes on, which is probably about what this is. So right now I'm just waiting on the fuel sock, and I'm going to shove this back underneath because raindrops keep hitting me. Even though I'm in the garage, it's dripping from the door. So here, real quick, I got the Actron code reader, and we're going to get the code that was pulled off of this sucker so we can see what caused this endeavor. But it was something about high voltage something. Yeah, fuel temperature sensor, circuit A, high input. That was that little turd wire. 5 codes now. Fuel level sensor circuit high input, P01, P0183, P0463. Then it's a confirmed code on the 183, a pending code on the 183, a pending code on the 463, and another pending code on the 463. So it looks to me like my fuel pump wasn't bad, but with 231,709 miles on the original fuel pump, I think it was time. So let's get back to it. Now what we got is this. Here is our fuel pump assembly with the pump installed. And you see that? Yep. And we're going to be taking this little rubber clamp off here. And here's our new replacement fuel sock. Our clamp I put on, but the new fuel sock comes with the clamp, and I'm going to be taking some needle nose here and removing the clamp that I put on with the pump. Alright, so we're just going to stick this on in the direction that the holes line up, which is the 1 and the 2, and it kind of squishes in there, and there you go. Super simple. That's our new fuel sock. Here's our replacement ring. You notice I had some oil on mine before, but bloop, it sits in there nice and good now because I had the clean out stuff. You're going to remember that this has a spring load on it, and we don't want this in there. So when you put it down, you're going to have to push some pressure as you tighten up the the pump, because this will ride. This rubber piece sits in the bottom of the reserve tank. Now be careful, you got to stick it in a little bit goofy because of the fuel filler. I'm going to squish that sucker in there and manipulate it around, and you want your orientation to be so the lines come out the passenger side. And I tried to find this hose. This is that evap hose right here that runs to the stainless tube. I slid it to get it off, and the critters decided they were going to eat it also. So what I'm going to do is remove this clamp right here with some needle nose pliers and get it out of the way. This hose is a 1/2 inch hose. We looked up the original part number at Nissan, and because of how this kink is, I'm not going to be able to fold this. I'll get a kink myself. So I bought extra hose, and I'll trim this, but right now we're going to squish this over the adapter in the tank. Maybe I'm going to just put a little bit of goober oil on there to help me slide this in. There we go. And get it all the way flush. Okay, so that's it on flush. Now I'm going to reuse that same clamp and put it on the tank side. Now I'm not hooking everything up on the car side yet, because we still got to put the tank in. And I'm going to try orienting all these in the same direction they were, which is all facing up, so you can get them in the future. I'm going to put this bottom vent tube down. Now, we had a really goofy tube, which luckily I was able to keep. I got to look at the nub in there. Baraka fuel hose, 1/4, 6.3 millimeter, 50 psi hose. This is the hose that will handle the higher ethanol content. So all I'm going to do, and these were actually all straight hoses from the factory, so I'm just going to measure out the length and cut it to length. I do not have a hose cutter, so I'm using just a knife. Guess what I don't have? I don't have a clamp, but I'll get one. The next slot is our actual fuel line. And I'll cut this to length when we get it in. The bolts that I took out of the tank were really tough, so I'm going to do some thread chasing with cleaning them up with some oil, put some oil on the bolts, run them up and down a couple times just to make sure the threads are clean, wiping off the bolt, re-oiling it after each use. Okay, so now we are sliding the tank back into position. I had to raise the truck up really high. I'm going to just jack stand out of the way for a second. Okay, now I'll put the sucker back down. I'm just going to stick it under here. Okay, now let me move this camera around. Doing any repair is twice as hard and long when you have to film it. So I'm going to lift the front up and stick it over the lip. Ouch! Shove all my hoses north here, over this, and just scoot it up like so onto the frame. At which time, find out what you did with your fuel pump plug and plug it back in. So I lifted the front of the fuel tank up, I connected the wire, and now I'm just gonna make sure all these are kind of on the inside a little bit, because I gotta have them on the inside of the frame rail to reconnect them all. I'm just shoving them up in here. Now this is loosely balanced on its little thing. Now if you're a strong man and you don't have a lot of fuel, I'm gonna lift this up and put a bolt in here. So let's see how that goes with one hand, cords and a camera in the way. So I have my bolt, and hopefully the front won't fall and hit me in the face. Shit. I don't know if I bumped the camera or not. Let me flip the little lid down here and see what we got. Okay, so we're aiming for that. I have my bolt in my wrench. It is on Tighten. Ooh. Oh, fuck. I'm going to shove all the hoses over the frame rail, which makes it not get caught. I'm going to drop my wrench with the, oh, a bitch. Drop my wrench with the bolt on it. Slide underneath here and center this thing. Put a bolt in it. Okay. Tank is in. Finger tight with one bolt. Now remember, you got the front skid plate to do. So we're going to do our other two bolts in the back, and then we're going to tighten them up. Okay, so as you can see, here's my big old vent hose that I added on that we're going to be cutting and fixing. Ouch! It's like rocks everywhere. I need to reconnect the filler neck, the fuel pump lines, and the filler tube, which will be protected by the plastic shrouding that goes up to the neck up here. I want to make sure all my lines are clear, and I'm going to put my vent tubes back on. Okay, so safety first here. I got the line cut. It's going to go on this, I don't know if you can see it, that silver fitting right there, but because of the camera angle and the light bulb and cords, I can't do it on screen, so hang on. Okay, so holding the camera, fuel neck, two vent tubes, 1 and 2. The fuel lines have been reconnected. This stupid vent thing, I had to put a regular hose clamp on it because I couldn't reach in there. I didn't have pliers long enough to grab the thing to squish it, so I just put a regular one on, and the regular straight hose wraps around perfectly. There's no kinks, there's no bends, so the only thing left is the filler neck and these two tubes, and then fire it up. Okay, so I washed this off. I'm letting it dry a little bit. I got some water in it. I forgot to get a hose clamp for that, so I'm gonna have to run out and get a hose clamp because I don't have any more. I believe everything is tight, so let's start it up. Okay, so here we are. I have not cleared the code yet. It might go away on its own in time, but if all works well, I should hear a burp. Okay, fuel pump just primed. I'm gonna prime it a couple times. Here we go. I should have a low fuel light and a service engine soon light. Low fuel light. That's a yes. Of course the brake is on. I'll let it run for a second. Cool. Now I'm gonna check the codes. Okay, temperature Same 5 codes. So we're going to go back, back, erase, yes, okay, okay. Code's remaining 1. What is the remaining code? Wonder if my wire didn't work. Poop. Alright. Let's see. Whoops. Little squeaky belt there. Pending. I'm going to try and erase it now. Whoop. Oh, I knocked the damn wire out. But my light is out. Low fuel light's on. So I'm not going to put fuel in it yet. Code's found 0. It's got a pending code. I don't know if that wire probably didn't work. Damn animals. So guess what I'm doing? I'm going to have to take that wire back off, which means dropping the tank and all that shit again. Yay. Or I'll let it run for a bit and see how it does. Stay tuned.